What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Summer CM. This is episode number 28. We're starting to season off with a recap of the summer transfer window. As you'll see, the main deals were Spinazzola and Galini, two of our seniors leaving to the Premier League for a combined total of 25.5 mil. And of course the incomings as well, the biggest signing that being Destiny Udoka for 40 mil. Bove just underneath 37.5 mil. I think it's in the last episode he cost just over 40 mil. No, sorry, just under 37.5 mil. And of course Japhet Tanganga coming in on a free transfer, now up to 85 overall after we changed that position from wing-back centre-half, and of course Renato Sanchez on deadline day as well for just over £20 million replacing Hatterbury. So yeah, already 4 new signings of our 6 going into the first 11 here, and no doubt about it, you look at our team, and even though we are still technically a 4.5-star team, I feel as though we're like a 5-star team masquerading around in a 4.5-star team sort of profile. Do you know what I mean? Like we're not a 4.5-star team, man. Our team is class. It's strong all over the pitch. I guess once again, like last season, you could say maybe there's not the greatest amount of quality in depth, and that's the reason why last year I feel as though we had early knockouts in the Cup and Europe as well, because we rotated our side for those Cup and European games, and in the end got knocked out by, well, first Barcelona in the last 16 of the Champions League. Sorry, I should say first Frosinone in the Coppa Italia, and then Barcelona in the Champions League. The latter, not too embarrassing, but the former definitely was. So that's really my only concern with this team here. Perhaps there's a lack of depth to it, but really, it's, other than that, super strong. And obviously, I would say right now, probably the best team in Italy. We were last year, technically, by winning the title as well, and I'd say we still are as well. And that's why for the first game of today's episode, on the back of the summer window, well, I really struggled. Yet went away to take on Udinese, and these games, they happen, man. These games, they happen. I talk about it a lot. Do you remember a few episodes ago I was saying how I didn't have a very good FIFA session? Every now and then, it just happens, you know. You have like a really bad game where you're not really on it. Defensively, you're really fragile. You might create a few things going forward, but miss a couple of good chances, and in the end, you get punished as well. Heading into this game here, my defense was weaker than me after a 6-month layoff at the gym. I mean, honestly, it was really poor. I was just so weak. I was so fragile, constantly getting exploited, constantly my high line being exploited as well. And whilst going forward, I was really threatening, and I did score a couple of goals as well through Colombo and Mbola, the dynamic duo, as you'll see. Sadly, this goal by Briel, like Jojo would say, it's just a little too late. Yep, lost the game 3-2, and that is our first loss of the season there, already on match day 3. So, yep, after all of the investment in the summer window, 4 big new signings coming into the first 11. Yep, only our second away day and only our 3rd game of the season, and it is a loss 3-2 away against Udinese. That's just proof right there, man. Like, seriously, you can't always win. You know, sometimes you are going to get it wrong. And, you know, I every now and then, like, you know, I get, you know, comments, and I get messages, and people ask me about, like, the game, and new players to the game saying, you know, how do I make this step up from, you know, professional to world-class to legendary to ultimate and so on and so forth. You know, how do I get better at beating the AI more consistently? You know, there seems to be this kind of like meme that at times, like, I'm sort of like this, you know, amazing player, but I say this like all the time, like I'm just above average, you know, like I'm not actually that great at the game, like I'm really not. I really enjoy playing again. I'm not that great, you know, like professional players and esports players, those are the guys you want to get your tips from, you know, like seriously. But even they are going to have off games, even they are going to lose every now and then, even they are going to go into bankers or games they expect to be bankers and they end up losing, sometimes comfortably as well. The great thing about team sport, individual sport, gaming, whatever, is that at times it can be unpredictable. You can do all the preparation, you can feel as though it should be a comfortable, easy victory for you, but it doesn't pan out that way, and that's just how it is. So yeah, to me, I say this to people a lot who want to get better at playing FIFA, whether we're talking offline, whether we're talking online, whatever the case may be. Just keep practicing and just remind yourself that if you have a loss, it's not a step back. It's not a failure. One of the biggest tips I give people is that when you do play the game, don't drop the difficulty down. Like even if you're struggling a little bit, say you're like I say this a lot, man, like seriously, you know, if you're for hardcore FIFA players, like Ultimate is not that difficult to play against once you figure out the game mechanics. But for those that don't play the game as often, you know, you only get like a couple of hours per week to play. I say this a lot, like, first of all, don't feel like you've got to play on the hardest difficulty. Don't feel like you've got to play on Legendary Ultimate. There's no shame whatsoever in playing on a lower difficulty, first and foremost. There really isn't, you know. And secondly, it's your game. You play the game how you want. But let's just say you want to get better at playing the game. You know, you want to test yourself against the higher difficulties. My biggest tip has always been, don't drop the difficulty down. Once you feel like you're ready to take the next step up, say you've gone from, I don't know, semi-pro to professional, and you feel as though you're winning most of your games quite comfortably, like 3, 4, 5-0, whatever, and you want to take the next step up to what would now be world class, if you're struggling, don't say, oh, it's a bit too much for me, I'm going to drop it down to professional. No, keep it on world class. I know that you're going to struggle for a while, but eventually you're going to find your feet and you'll be a better player for it. And it's a great lesson for life as well. It really is. When you're struggling and when you're finding something really difficult, our natural response is, well, we have like fight or flight in our brains, right? Fight or flight, either we run or we fight it. To me, I feel a lot more growth comes from fighting as opposed to running. Now, obviously, you know, getting more personal here, like as a kid, I used to go into flight mode, like all the time. As a kid, yeah, my childhood wasn't exactly the most traumatic in the world, but I certainly went through some trauma, and my instant response to that trauma was to run. You know, it was just flight. I'm just honest about it. There seems to be this sort of like shame, you know, when people talk about fight or flight, and they see flight as a weakness. No. They are both valid responses to trauma and fear. Right, so as a kid, I was definitely more flight than fight, no doubt about that. My brother was more fight, I was more flight. Maybe that's me being the younger sibling, I don't know, but I was definitely flight. But as I've gotten older and I've gotten more mature, you know, I'm 30 now, I'm turning 31 in a few months' time. Oh, it doesn't get easier saying that, I tell you. I've definitely learned that as I've gotten older and I've, again, gotten more mature, gotten a little bit wiser, or at least I'd like to think so. I think about the lessons I've took in life over the past, let's say 6, 7, maybe 8 years. I would say since I moved up to Manchester, my life has definitely changed a lot, and I've been through quite a lot of things that have required me to go into those sort of like fight or flight modes. I'm not talking about, you know, actual fights or things like that, but just trauma responses and so on. For me, I think about the things where I've learned the most and the things where I've had more personal growth, and it's definitely been where I stood my ground and said, you know what? No, I need to fight my way through this. I need to fight my way through this, and even if at the time I get embarrassed, even if at the time I fail drastically, I learn a lot more that way. So to be personal about it, I guess a good example is that, so I used to really struggle with reading, okay? So I used to really struggle with reading. It's a thing I'm not embarrassed about, but as a kid I couldn't really read. I don't know whether I've got ADHD. I feel like everyone gets diagnosed with ADHD nowadays. I don't know if I've got ADHD, I'm not too sure, but I really struggled reading. Like I really struggled reading. It's one of the reasons why, in terms of education, I didn't get very good grades. I was quite poor at that, poor at school. Anything that required a certain level of academic and research, I was just really poor. You know, my GCSEs, for those curious, I got a few C's and 1 A. Guess what that A was in? I'm sure you can guess it. It's the one subject where you don't really need to be very academic, and that is physical education. That was my 1A. Most other things were either a C, and I got a couple of E's as well, including in maths and also geography as well. But anyway, the point is, I really struggled with reading. As a kid, I just could not concentrate. I found it really tough. And so a couple of years ago, every year now, I do New Year's resolutions, and I, you know, do New Year's goals, if you will. I don't really call them resolutions, but goals. So in my phone, I've got like a goals list, things I want to do during the year and things I try and stick to. That could be, it's mainly discipline. For example, like now I try not to get any taxis whatsoever because I just feel it's too expensive for me. I can't really afford it, and it's better to spend a lot longer time on public transport, perhaps getting up earlier to go on public transport. Even if it's like 2-3 times the journey length, it will save me quite a bit more money. So like taxis, for example, is one. Praying every morning and every night now as well. Not religious, but I try and be more spiritual, you know. And one of the things a couple of years ago that I really wanted to start doing was learning how to read. because I just couldn't read. As a kid, I read like 2 books. You know, my mum, when I was obviously very little, would read me Mog books. Anyone remember Mog books? Mog the cat? She'd read me Mog books, and she wanted me to get into reading, but I just couldn't read. I just literally could not concentrate. And it didn't matter what it was. I used to get Match magazines from like my dad or whatever, and I wouldn't read them. I just like look at the pictures. I found it really hard to read, and if I did read it, I couldn't take any information. So a couple of years ago, I wanted to start learning how to read. This was back in 2021 because I thought it would be a good way for me to develop a little bit and also learn skills and learn lessons from books, and just in general have a good use of my spare time as well when I'm not at the gym or doing anything else. So yeah, I wanted to learn how to read properly and soak information in. And when I first started, God, man, I just couldn't do it. I literally just could not read. I remember the first book my housemate at the time gave me to read was a book called Animal Farm. And even though it's mainly not necessarily for kids, it's you know, it's a book that sometimes you read in school. I really struggled with it. Like I every single time I turned a page, I was like, I've already forgotten what was in the page. Like I'd read page 3, I'd go on to page 4, and I would have forgotten everything that was on page 3. I read it, but I soaked nothing in. I found it really hard. And even though I was only like, again, a quarter of the way through the book, I remember saying to my housemate at the time, oh, this is tough, this is really, really tough. But she kept saying, like, stick at it. Like, seriously, if you've got to reread a page 2 or 3 times, just keep doing it, you know. And my natural response was just to flight. You know, my natural response was like, okay, run. Like, seriously, run. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not any good at reading. You've clearly got some kind of attention deficit disorder. Just stop. You know, it's something you can't do. But instead, I was disciplined and I said, no, I've got to do this. I've got to fight through this. I've got to learn how to read properly. And eventually, I finished a book. It took me a while. It shouldn't have taken me as long as it did, but it did, because I had to reread it quite a lot. And now I can tell you the story's flow, most of the characters in it. I related most of the characters called Boxer. I will just work harder. You know, and to me, like, again, like, that was the start of learning that I just needed to fight. And once I learned that, I was able to stand my ground, and now I've read loads of books. I've read loads and loads of books, and I really enjoy reading. Like the last book I read, actually it was 2 books ago now. I've read 2 books in quick succession. One of them was called Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I couldn't put it down. I absolutely loved it. I read it in like 4 days. I absolutely loved it. It's a brilliant, brilliant book about a young girl called Kaya who's abandoned by her family and lives on marshland. It was really, really good. Really, really enjoyed it. And then after that, I read a book called Verity by Colleen Hoover. My friend's girlfriend gave it to me. It was, again, very, very, not quite as good, but still very good. And I enjoyed it. And now I love reading. I'm reading a Murakami book right now. I read Norwegian Wood last year. Wasn't a big fan of that. And now I'm reading one called Men Without Women. It's a book of short stories. So I'm reading this one. I've read quite a lot of like self-development books as well, such as Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King, Solve for Happy by Mo Gauda, as you mentioned that a few episodes ago. And anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that a few years ago, I couldn't have even fathomed that I would have read, you know, a collection of books. I'd have my own favourite book, which is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie as well, for those curious. I couldn't have even fathomed that I would have read these books a couple of years ago. I'd be like, what, are you serious? I've turned into a reader in my spare time? I don't think so. But it's true, I have. I really enjoy reading. It's probably my favourite pastime now, which was just inconceivable, just, again, 3 years ago. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here as I'm going off on a tangent is that, you know, it can be really, really hard at times to learn a new skill or to challenge yourself and stick to that challenge as well. And the old me never would do that. You know, the old me would have, you know, read a third of Animal Farm and said, you know what, said to my housemate, can't do it, it's too hard, I can't do this, I'm going to stop and never pick up a book again. But instead I challenged myself, I stuck with it, and eventually I fought through to a place now where I genuinely really enjoy reading. I genuinely really enjoy reading and borrowing books off my friends' partners and so on and so forth. It's really, really fun for me, you know. And I guess, again, the point I'm making here is one is tangible, is that when you are struggling to learn a new skill, and this can be applicable to FIFA or other games or anything really in life, we'll use FIFA as an example here, don't feel the need to drop off. Like, don't feel the need to say, do you know what, I can't do this, it's too hard, I'm going to go back to the comfort of safety. I feel like you learn a lot more when you do decide to fight for it. It's very natural for our brains when we are struggling with something and we are in perhaps again a traumatic moment or anything like that, learning a new skill, we're really struggling. So it's very natural for our brains to stop doing that or to want to stop doing that and say, no, this is too hard, it's not working, etc, etc. But really, I do feel as though you learn a lot more when you stick at it. As Profundi scores this glorious little Rabona goal here that proves to be the game winner as well, away against AC Milano. So yeah, like if you are struggling, if you are playing this game and you are finding it quite tough, and you might watch me play and think, you know, I'll just score a Bonner game winner here, for example, away at the San Siro. You might think, oh my god, I can never do that, I'm stuck on semi-pro. Like seriously, just stick at it. You think I, you know, got good at playing FIFA or semi-good at playing FIFA overnight? No, it took time. Took a while, but eventually I got there. And don't forget, I've been playing since FIFA 99. That was longer than some of you were even born. So stick at it. Stick at it. And I know it can be hard, but believe me, you don't learn anything by going back. Okay, you've got to stand your ground, fight, and push forward. And I really do believe as I've gotten older, I've gotten more mature, I've gotten wiser. I can understand why the flight part of my brain would kick in when I was younger, and it certainly served a purpose, no doubt about that. But the fight is where I feel like you develop a lot more. The flight is good. It's a way to become even safer, no doubt about that. But you do learn, you do progress a lot more when you choose to fight. So anyway, I hope it made sense today. I kind of wanted to talk about this because basically, to let you guys in behind the curtain, tomorrow I'm going through something very, very big in my life. Like I'm going through a very, very big change for me, very big momentous moment. And I'm terrified. Obviously, I'm absolutely terrified, but I know I've got to fight through it because it's going to lead to a lot more growth and a lot more self-development as well. So the natural response in me, like I said, especially when I was young, would have been, no way, this is too much, I'm going to run, etc, etc, etc. But I wouldn't have learned anything. Of course, it would have led me to be safer and to be in a state of more comfort, but I wouldn't have grown, I wouldn't have developed, I wouldn't be able to progress and get any further in my life, and also build up that resilience as well. So yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to talk about that real briefly as well. So like, believe me, I'm still going through these moments as well where I want to run, like the flight part of my mode, my mind kind of is the default, and I want to run, I'm too scared, I can't do this. But the point I'm trying to make is that these moments here, whether we're talking about playing FIFA or playing sport or anything in life, like believe me, it's best to fight it. It's best to fight those feelings of uncomfortable feelings and fear and so on and so forth. It's best to fight it, no doubt about that, than it is to run as well. So yeah, hopefully I made some sense today. But believe me, whatever you're going through, and it can be as simple as, you know, wanting to play on a higher difficulty in FIFA offline, or it can be big events you're going through in real life as well. Challenge yourself, like seriously challenge yourself. You will learn a lot more this way than you will if you run. Psychological safety, in times it's probably necessary to run, but in the majority I would say stand your ground and battle through it, because believe me, even if you come out with scraps and scrapes and bruises and wounds, you're going to be better off for it, mentally and physically as well, in the long run. I'm sure of that. So anyway, that will do it for today's episode. Hopefully I made some sense talking about fight or flight today. Do you know what? It's like 4 weeks to go, less than that now, until the new FIFA comes out. I'm ready for the new FIFA. What can I say, man? I'm ready for the new FIFA. I'm still enjoying this save, don't get me wrong, but I'm ready for the new FIFA. I'm sure you guys are as well. I'll keep going, but yeah, I'm probably going to do a few more episodes like this where less talk about the gameplay and more just chat about life, because I really enjoy it. Anyway, guys, much love. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Summer CM very soon.